Hello guys, welcome to Fictional Vortex. So in this video, we will see what if Naruto was the demon lord of gluttony and primordial slime. Naruto x Rimuru, Fem, x Milim. That time I got reincarnated as a slime. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1, Awakening in Convergence Pain. Unlike anything he'd ever known. Not the sharp sting of a kunai or the dull ache of chakra exhaustion, but something fundamental, as though every molecule of his being was being ripped apart and reassembled incorrectly. Naruto Uzumaki, hero of the Fourth Shinobi War, felt himself dissolving and reforming simultaneously. The last thing he remembered was Kagaya's dimensional rift collapsing around them. He'd pushed Sasuke clear, used his remaining chakra to hold the portal open for the others. Then, dissolution. Consciousness returned in fragments. No arms. No legs. No body at all, just awareness suspended in something viscous. He couldn't breathe, yet didn't need to. Couldn't see, yet somehow perceived his surroundings. Am I dead? The thought rippled through his formless being. A pulse of energy answered, familiar yet strange. The Kyuubi's chakra, but transformed. It swirled within whatever he'd become, no longer separate but integrated completely. When awareness fully returned, Naruto realized he was fluid. A mass of translucent orange-gold slime pulsing with internal light. Bizarre sensations flooded his consciousness. He could feel every particle of his new form, could extend pseudopods at will, could sense the chemical composition of the damp earth beneath him. What the hell happened to me? Naruto attempted to gather himself, literally pulling his amorphous body into a more concentrated mass. As he did, instinctive knowledge surfaced. He was a slime, a primordial entity capable of absorbing and analyzing matter. The realization should have horrified him, but instead felt strangely right. Around him stretched an unfamiliar forest. Massive trees with phosphorescent bark reached toward a purplish sky, while bioluminescent fungi carpeted the ground. Nothing like Fire Country's forests. Nothing like anywhere in the elemental nations. A rustling in the underbrush captured his attention. His new form detected vibrations through the ground before his consciousness processed the sound. Without thinking, Naruto flowed into a defensive position behind a tree root, his body instinctively compressing to minimize exposure. A wounded creature stumbled into the clearing, humanoid but definitely not human. Its skin shimmered with scales, and twisted horns protruded from its temples. Blood oozed from a massive wound in its chest, staining elaborate robes that suggested importance. Who would dare? The creature rasped, collapsing. Betrayed by my own kind. Naruto hesitated. His shinobi instincts urged caution, but something deeper, something new, pulled him toward the dying entity. He flowed forward, stopping just short of the pooling blood. The creature's eyes widened. A primordial? Here. It laughed, a wet sound filled with blood. The universe has a strange sense of humor. Perhaps this is fate. Naruto managed to form a rudimentary mouth on his surface. Who are you? The words came out perfectly intelligible despite his lack of lungs or vocal cords. Avrax, demon lord of gluttony. Or rather, I was. The creature's breathing grew more labored. My title will die with me unless. Its eyes focused on Naruto with sudden clarity. You. A primordial without affiliation. You could inherit my domain, my power. I don't understand. No time to explain. The others will come to confirm my death. Avrax reached out with a trembling hand. If you wish to survive in this realm, take my power. Consume me. Become the new demon lord of gluttony. Every fiber of Naruto's being recoiled at the suggestion, yet the new instincts of his slime form recognized the logic. In this unknown world, he needed advantages. Information. Protection. Will I remain myself? Naruto asked. Avrax's lips curled into a bloody smile. More yourself than ever before. My knowledge becomes yours, but the will, the spirit, that remains uniquely yours. His voice dropped to a whisper. Choose quickly. Death approaches. Decision made, Naruto flowed forward, enveloping the dying demon lord. His slime body automatically analyzed and broke down the organic matter, but this was different from mere consumption. As Avrax dissolved, energy transferred, memories, knowledge, power flowing into Naruto's consciousness. The elemental nations. The 10-tailed beast. Kagaya. Dimensional rifts. These concepts existed in Avrax's knowledge, but as distant legends. In their place were new realities, demon lords, magicules, monster evolution, soul corridors, the Jura Tempest Federation. Pain lanced through Naruto's amorphous form as new patterns etched themselves into his very being. A sigil, the mark of gluttony, materialized within his core, pulsing with authority and ancient power. The sensation reminded him of accepting Kurama's chakra, but more profound, a fundamental transformation rather than a partnership. When the process completed, Naruto was changed. Still a slime, but with a density and golden luminosity that hadn't existed before. Knowledge settled into his consciousness, not just information, but ingrained understanding of this world and his new place in it. He was Naruto Uzumaki, former shinobi of Konoha. And now, impossibly, he was also the demon lord of gluttony, ruler of the consumption domain, one of the 10 great demon lords of this realm. The forest around him suddenly seemed sharper, more defined. His awareness extended outward, sensing life forms and energy patterns for miles. Automatically, his body began generating an aura of authority, a passive manifestation of his new status. This power, it's incredible. Experimentally, Naruto extended a tendril, focusing his energy. The golden slime stretched, then shifted, taking humanoid form. It wasn't perfect, his skin retained a subtle golden translucence, and his eyes glowed with internal light, but he once again had arms, legs, a body approximating his human form, even clothing mimicked from Avrax's memories. His first steps were unsteady, the balance different from his original body. Naruto flexed his fingers, marveling at how easily he could manipulate this new form. He reached for his chakra and found it transformed, still accessible, but intertwined with something called magicules, this world's fundamental energy. Experimentally, he attempted a basic jutsu, creating a shadow clone. The clone materialized, golden and perfect, but the process felt different. Instead of splitting his chakra, he'd actually divided a portion of his mass, imbued it with his consciousness. Whoa, both Narutos said simultaneously. The clone didn't feel separate like his shadow clones had before. It was him, literally a piece of him operating semi-independently. With a thought, he reabsorbed it, regaining its mass and experiences instantly. A sudden pressure in the air alerted him to approaching entities. Powerful ones. Avrax's memories supplied context, other demon lords, coming to investigate their colleague's death. Naruto needed to leave. The memories warned him that newly ascended demon lords were vulnerable, their powers unstable. He focused on another ability from Avrax's memories, spatial movement. The forest blurred around him as he transported himself miles away in an instant, the technique feeling similar to the flying thunder god but requiring no preparations or markers. Just raw power and intent. He materialized on a cliff overlooking an extraordinary vista, a vast forest giving way to mountains, then an immense barrier shimmer that Avrax's memories identified as the boundary of the Jura Tempest Federation, territory of another demon lord. Naruto settled onto a rock, processing everything that had happened. The dimensional collapse must have thrown him into this parallel world, transforming him in the process. Perhaps Kurama's chakra had protected him, mutating into this new form rather than allowing him to die. Speaking of which, Kurama. Naruto called internally, seeking the familiar presence of the nine-tailed fox. No discreet response came, but something stirred within his core. Not Kurama as a separate entity, but aspects of the fox's power and essence, fully integrated with his new being. Not gone, but transformed, just as Naruto himself had been. The realization brought a pang of loss. For all their complicated history, Kurama had become a partner, even a friend. Yet Naruto sensed that this integration had saved them both, preserving something of the fox's essence that might otherwise have been lost entirely in the dimensional collapse. Night fell as Naruto contemplated his situation. Stars appeared, unfamiliar constellations that Avrax's memories couldn't identify. The demon lord had never been much of an astronomer. Morning brought new resolve. Naruto needed information, allies, and a better understanding of his new position. Avrax's memories suggested the Jura Tempest Federation as a potential starting point. Their leader was supposedly reasonable for a demon lord. Decision made, Naruto stood, still marveling at his golden humanoid form. He concentrated, accessing another ability from his new repertoire, flight. His body lightened, and he rose into the air, streaking toward the barrier in the distance. The journey gave him time to practice controlling his new form. He experimented with shifting his density, extending appendages, and even temporarily splitting into multiple smaller versions of himself before recombining. Each experiment came with revelations. He could absorb and analyze matter, could manipulate his body's temperature and hardness, could even camouflage himself by altering his coloration. By the time the barrier loomed before him, Naruto felt reasonably confident in his basic abilities, though he sensed vast potential still untapped. He descended to the forest floor just outside the boundary, deciding a diplomatic approach would be wisest. The barrier itself was impressive, a shimmering wall of magical energy that Naruto's new senses could analyze in detail. Not designed to kill, but to detect and potentially contain threats. Sophisticated work. He hadn't waited long when a patrol appeared, a diverse group of humanoid monsters led by a blue-haired Oni and a lizard-man warrior. Their formation was disciplined, their equipment standardized. This was no random monster band but an organized military unit. "Halt," the Oni called. "You're at the border of the Jura Tempest Federation. Identify yourself." Naruto raised his hands in a universal gesture of peace. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I'm new to this region. I seek an audience with your leader." The patrol exchanged glances. The lizard man stepped forward, eyes narrowing. "Your aura, you're a demon lord." Naruto nodded. No point hiding it, they could sense his nature. "Recently, appointed. I come in peace, seeking information and potentially alliance." This caused a stir. The Oni signaled to a smaller creature, who immediately disappeared, teleporting to report, Naruto guessed. "We will await instructions," the Oni stated formally. "Please remain here." Naruto nodded, settling back onto a fallen log. The patrol maintained a respectful distance, weapons ready but not threatening. Professional. Less than 20 minutes later, a new presence approached, one that made Naruto's new senses tingle with recognition of power similar to his own. A demon lord. The figure that emerged from the forest was not what he expected. Petite and androgynous, with blue hair and a serene expression. Despite their unthreatening appearance, Naruto immediately recognized tremendous power contained in their slender form. "I am Rimuru Tempest," they said, voice clear and measured. "Demon Lord and leader of the Jura Tempest Federation. I understand you requested an audience." Naruto stood, bowing slightly. "Naruto Uzumaki. Apparently the new demon lord of gluttony, though that's a very recent development." Rimuru's eyes widened slightly. "Avrax is dead, then?" "He was dying when I found him. He offered me his title before he passed." A moment of silence followed as Rimuru studied him intently. "You're a slime," they finally said. "Like me. Yet different. Your aura is unlike anything I've encountered." "I'm not from this world," Naruto admitted. "There was an incident, a dimensional collapse. I was transformed in the process." This clearly surprised Rimuru. Another otherworlder? They smiled suddenly, tension leaving their shoulders. Well, that's something we have in common. I was human once, in another world, before coming here and becoming a slime. The revelation created an immediate connection between them. Rimuru gestured toward the barrier. Come. We can speak more comfortably in my city. I promise you safe passage as my guest. Naruto followed Rimuru through the barrier, which parted before them like mist. Beyond stretched a marvel, a bustling city of diverse monsters and architecture that blended natural elements with sophisticated design. Buildings spiraled around living trees, bridges connected different levels, and everywhere, different species coexisted in apparent harmony. Welcome to Tempest, Rimuru said, clearly proud. We've built this from nothing in just a few years. It's incredible, Naruto replied honestly, thinking of Konoha. Different in every way, yet the sense of community felt familiar. Rimuru led him to an impressive structure at the city's center, a government building combining both natural elements and sophisticated magical technology. Inside, they entered a comfortable meeting room where refreshments awaited. Please, sit, Rimuru offered. As Naruto settled into a chair, he noticed something he'd missed before, subtle feminine curves beneath Rimuru's clothing, a softness to their features that hinted at femininity despite their androgynous presentation. As if noting his observation, Rimuru smiled. I was male in my previous life. The slime form is naturally genderless, but when I created this humanoid body, it came out somewhat ambiguous. My subordinates tend to see me as female now, and I've grown accustomed to it. Forgive my staring, Naruto said. I'm still adjusting to everything. No offense taken. Now, Rimuru leaned forward, tell me how you came to be here, and how Avrax's title passed to you. Naruto explained, the Fourth Shinobi War, Kagaya, the dimensional rift collapse, awakening as a slime, and his encounter with the dying Avrax. He kept certain details vague, unsure how much to reveal to this potential ally. Rimuru listened attentively, occasionally nodding. When Naruto finished, they sat back, eyes thoughtful. Fascinating. Your world sounds quite different from my original Earth. These shinobi abilities, they're similar to what we'd call skills here, though your chakra system seems unique. And this world? Naruto asked. Avrax's memories provide some information, but it's fragmented, focused mainly on Demon Lord politics. Rimuru laughed. That sounds like Avrax. He was always more concerned with power dynamics than actual governance. Their expression grew more serious. As Demon Lords, we're among the most powerful entities in this world. With that comes responsibility, at least I believe so. Not all share my view. I noticed your city is different from what Avrax's memories suggested Demon Lord territories typically look like. Yes. I'm building something new here, a nation where monsters can live in peace, develop culture, trade, diplomacy. Many traditional demon lords rule through fear and power alone. That's not my style either, Naruto said. The words came easily, whatever else had changed, his core beliefs remained. Something shifted in Rimuru's expression, a new interest, perhaps even approval. The consumption domain bordered my territory to the north. What do you intend to do with it? I haven't decided, Naruto admitted. I need to understand more about this world, about what being a demon lord truly means here. Rimuru studied him for a long moment. You're either exceptionally honest or exceptionally clever. Either way, I find myself inclined to help you. She, and Naruto had decided to think of Rimuru as female based on her appearance and her subordinate's perception, smiled. Let's consider this the beginning of diplomatic relations between Tempest and the consumption domain. I'd like that. Their discussion continued, moving to practical matters. Rimuru explained the basics of this world's magic system, the political landscape, the nature of skills and their acquisition. Naruto shared selective information about shinobi abilities and the elemental nations. As they spoke, Naruto became increasingly aware of subtle changes in Rimuru's demeanor, a softening in her expression, increased animation when explaining concepts she was passionate about, even occasional unconscious mirroring of his own gestures. She was beautiful in an unconventional way, power contained in a delicate form, wisdom behind youthful features. For her part, Rimuru seemed fascinated by Naruto's background. To grow up as a living weapon, essentially, it's not so different from how monsters are often viewed here. Yet you maintained your humanity. It wasn't always easy, Naruto admitted. But I had people who believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. That makes all the difference, doesn't it? Rimuru's voice carried the weight of personal experience. Their conversation was interrupted by an aide, a green-haired elf who entered with a formal bow. Lord Rimuru, forgive the interruption, but we've detected unusual magical fluctuations at the western border. Scouts report signs of battle. Rimuru stood immediately. Excuse me, Lord Naruto. This requires my attention. I could come with you, Naruto offered. If there's trouble, I might be able to help. Rimuru hesitated only briefly before nodding. Very well. Consider it a practical demonstration of how we handle border incidents. They moved quickly through the city, gathering a response team as they went, the blue Oni from earlier, a Kijin woman with extraordinary magical presence, and several others with specialized combat skills. Transport magic whisked them to the western border within minutes. The scene that greeted them was chaos. A section of forest had been flattened, trees uprooted and earth scorched. In the center of the destruction, a petite figure with pink hair hovered in mid-air, radiating such intense magical energy that the air itself distorted around her. Milim, Rimuru sighed, equal parts exasperation and fondness in her voice. I might have guessed. The hovering figure turned, revealing a youthful face and an outfit that seemed impractically revealing for combat. Despite her childlike appearance, Naruto's senses screamed danger. This being's power dwarfed almost anything he'd ever encountered. Rimuru! Milim shouted joyfully, zipping toward them at incredible speed. You came to play with me. Her eyes fixed on Naruto, widening with interest. Who's your golden friend? This is Naruto Uzumaki, the new demon lord of gluttony, Rimuru explained carefully. Naruto, meet Milim Nava, the demon lord of destruction. Milim circled Naruto with undisguised curiosity, moving so quickly she appeared to blur. Oh, he's pretty. And strong too. Did you eat Avrax? He was boring anyway. I didn't exactly eat, Naruto began, but Milim had already moved on, her attention span apparently brief. Rimuru. I came because I was bored. There are intruders in the mountains to the north. I was going to smash them, but then I thought maybe you'd want to know first. Intruders? Rimuru's expression sharpened. What kind? Dunno. They feel weird. Not from around here. Milim performed an aerial somersault. Wanna go see? Rimuru glanced at Naruto. The north would be your territory now, technically. Naruto nodded. All the more reason to investigate together. Milim clapped her hands. Yes. Adventure time with my besties. Since when am I? Naruto started, but Rimuru just shook her head with a smile. Don't fight it. Once Milim decides you're her friend, resistance is futile. The pink-haired demon lord grabbed both their hands. Let's go. I'll show you where. She pulled them into the air with strength that belied her tiny form, accelerating at a pace that would have killed a normal human. For Naruto, the sensation was exhilarating. His new body handled the pressure and speed with ease, actually enjoying the rush of wind and energy. Beside him, Rimuru looked equally comfortable, her blue hair streaming behind her. They covered vast distances in minutes, mountains blurring beneath them. Milim's childish enthusiasm was infectious, her joy in simple flight undeniable. Yet Naruto noticed something else beneath her carefree demeanor, loneliness. Recognition flickered within him. Despite their wildly different personalities, Milim's isolation resonated with his childhood experiences. There. Milim suddenly announced, descending toward a rocky plateau. The weird energy is coming from that cave. They landed gracefully, or in Milim's case, with an unnecessarily powerful impact that cracked the stone beneath her feet. Before them yawned a cave mouth, unremarkable except for the faint energy signature emanating from within, an energy that triggered recognition in Naruto. "That's chakra," he said, surprised. "Not quite like mine used to be, but definitely chakra." Rimuru gave him a sharp look. "From your world?" "Possibly." Milim bounced impatiently. "Are we going in or what?" Naruto created several shadow clones, golden duplicates that split from his mass before solidifying. "I'll scout ahead." "Oh, neat trick." Milim clapped. "Make one for me to play with." "They're not toys," Naruto explained, but created an additional clone anyway, which Milim immediately began interrogating about its capabilities. The scouting clones entered the cave while Naruto, Rimuru, and an increasingly distracted Milim waited outside. Through his connection to the clones, Naruto perceived a winding tunnel leading deep into the mountain, eventually opening into a larger chamber. There, his clone discovered the source of the chakra signature, a woman with blonde hair bound in a tight braid, wearing tattered clothing that might once have been a uniform. She sat in a meditative pose, surrounded by a barrier of blue-tinted energy. The clone approached cautiously. "Hello." The woman's eyes snapped open, revealing slitted pupils that immediately registered as familiar to Naruto. "Who are you?" she demanded, the barrier around her flaring. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I was a shinobi of Konoha." The woman's eyes widened. "Impossible. Konoha is gone. Everything is gone." "Gone?" the clone asked. "The dimensional collapse. Nothing survived." Her eyes narrowed. "What are you?" "You look human, but you're not. I could ask you the same. You have the eyes of a Jinchuriki." The woman tensed, then slowly lowered her barrier. "Yujito ni. Former Jinchuriki of the Two Tails." She studied the golden clone. "You were the Nine Tails Jinchuriki, weren't you? I remember hearing about you." The clone nodded. "The dimensional collapse transformed me. I'm something else now." "Same here," Yujito said grimly. "Matatabi and I merged somehow during the collapse. I'm not fully human anymore." Through the clone's eyes, Naruto noticed subtle feline characteristics, the slitted eyes, slightly pointed ears, two sharp canines when she spoke. The Two Tails had been a cat-like bijou, and its influence was evident in Yujito's transformed state. "There are others outside who should meet you," the clone said. "Friends. One is like me, from another world originally." Yujito hesitated, then nodded. "Lead the way." The clone dispersed, its information flowing back to Naruto. He turned to Rimuru and Milim, the latter now thoroughly bored with her assigned clone and using it for target practice. "There's someone inside. A woman from my world, also transformed by the collapse." "Ooh, another new friend?" Milim asked, instantly interested again. They entered the cave together, Naruto leading the way. When they reached the chamber, Yujito stood waiting, her posture combat-ready despite her apparent exhaustion. Her eyes widened at the sight of Rimuru and particularly Milim, clearly sensing their power. "More like you?" she asked Naruto. "In a manner of speaking. This is Rimuru Tempest and Milim Nava, both demon lords of this world." "Demon lords," Yujito repeated flatly. "Of course. Why not? Everything else is insane already." Despite her exhaustion, Yujito maintained a warrior's dignity. She briefly explained her experience, fighting in the Fourth Shinobi War, being caught in the dimensional collapse, awakening in this strange world with her body transformed, her bijou's chakra now integrated with her own. "I've been hiding in this cave for days, trying to understand what happened, where I am. You're in what's now my territory, apparently, Naruto explained. The consumption domain. Yujito's eyebrow raised. You've adapted quickly. That's always been my best skill, Naruto replied with a hint of his old grin. Milim, who had been uncharacteristically quiet during this exchange, suddenly darted forward to circle Yujito. You smell like a cat. I like cats. Can you turn into a big one? Can you breathe fire? The other cat person I know breathes fire. Yujito stared at the pink-haired demon lord with a mixture of confusion and wariness. I can manipulate fire, yes. Show me. Milim demanded. Perhaps later, Rimuru interjected diplomatically. Lady Yujito looks like she could use rest and food first. Oh. We should have a feast. Milim clapped her hands. To welcome our new friends. Rimuru sighed fondly. That's actually not a bad idea. Naruto, would you and Yujito like to return to Tempest with us? We can provide proper accommodations while you decide your next steps. Naruto glanced at Yujito, who gave a slight nod. We accept your hospitality, he told Rimuru. As they prepared to leave, a tremor shook the cave, dislodging rocks from the ceiling. Naruto moved instinctively, his body flowing to shield Yujito from falling debris. His slime form absorbed the impact without damage, stones sinking into his temporarily liquefied body before being ejected. What was that? Yujito asked, staring at Naruto's demonstration of his new abilities. Earthquake. Rimuru suggested, but her expression was troubled. Not normal, Milim said, suddenly serious. Bad energy. Coming from deeper. She pointed toward the rear of the cave, where a narrow passage continued downward. Naruto created more clones, sending them to investigate. Through their shared perception, he navigated the twisting passages, descending deep into the mountain's heart. What they found sent a chill through his transformed body. A massive chamber, walls covered in familiar script, the same language that had adorned the Ten-Tails shrine in his world. At the center, a crack in reality itself leaked malevolent red energy. One clone approached cautiously, analyzing the energy with his new senses. The signature was unmistakable, chakra, but twisted, primal. Chakra that resembled the Ten-Tails. The clone dispersed itself, sending this information back to Naruto. He turned to the others, expression grave. There's something you need to see. Something from my world that shouldn't be here. Dangerous? Rimuru asked. Potentially catastrophic. Milim grinned. Sounds fun. Yujito just closed her eyes briefly, a look of resignation crossing her features. It followed us, didn't it? The madness never ends. Together, they descended deeper into the mountain, toward a threat Naruto had hoped never to face again, a fragment of a power that had nearly destroyed his world, somehow bleeding through the dimensional barriers into this one. The red glow intensified as they approached the chamber, casting eerie shadows on the tunnel walls. Naruto found himself automatically taking point, his body tensing for combat. When they entered the massive underground space, even Milim grew quiet. The crack in reality pulsed like a malevolent heart, each beat releasing tendrils of crimson energy that writhed like living things before dissipating. What is it? Rimuru asked softly. In my world, there was a creature called the Ten-Tails, the original source of all bijou, all chakra. This energy, it's similar. A fragment perhaps, trying to reform. Yujito's hands glowed with blue fire. We should destroy it now, before it grows stronger. It's not that simple, Naruto cautioned. The Ten-Tails was essentially immortal. Even fragmented, it would just reform elsewhere. Milim hovered closer to the crack, seemingly unaffected by the malevolent energy. It's pushing through from somewhere else. Another dimension trying to connect to ours. Rimuru nodded. A dimensional intrusion point. Rare, but not unheard of. Usually they stabilize or collapse on their own. This one's getting stronger, Yujito observed. I can feel it pulling on my chakra, resonating with what remains of Matatabi within me. Naruto felt it too, a tugging at his core, where Kurama's essence had integrated with his slime form. It recognizes us. The Bijou chakra. Milim suddenly spun to face them, her childish demeanor replaced by something ancient and serious. We need to seal it. If it's drawing on your energy, it might be trying to use you as anchors to fully manifest in this world. You know how to create dimensional seals? Naruto asked, surprised. Milim's eyes glowed faintly. I'm older than I look. And I've seen something like this before, long ago. Rimuru stepped forward. I have sealing techniques as well. Between us, we should be able to contain it temporarily. I can add Fuinjutsu to the mix, Naruto offered. Sealing was an Uzumaki specialty, though I never fully mastered it. They worked quickly, each contributing their unique abilities. Rimuru created a containment barrier of pure magical energy. Milim added ancient runes that glowed with power beyond anything Naruto had encountered. Yujito contributed her precise chakra control, while Naruto incorporated elements of the seal that had once contained Kurama within him. The work was exhausting, demanding precision and concentration. As they neared completion, the crack pulsed more violently, as if sensing their intentions. Tendrils of red energy lashed out, targeting each of them specifically. Naruto moved without thinking, his body flowing between the others and the attack, absorbing the brunt of the energy. Pain lanced through him as the malevolent chakra fought his own, but his unique nature, part shinobi, part slime, part demon lord, gave him resistance the others lacked. Finish it, he called through gritted teeth, his humanoid form wavering under the assault. The others completed the seal, activating it with a final surge of combined power. Light exploded outward, momentarily blinding everyone. When visibility returned, the crack remained but was now encased in layers of glowing barriers, the malevolent energy contained. Naruto reformed his humanoid shape, the absorbed energy dissipating harmlessly through his slime body. He felt Rimuru's hand on his arm, her touch cool and somehow calming. That was reckless, she said, but her tone carried admiration rather than censure. Old habits, he replied with a tired smile. Milim bounced around the sealed crack, examining their work. It'll hold for now, but not forever. Whatever this is, it really wants through. Yujito approached Naruto, her expression complex. You shielded us without hesitation. Some things haven't changed, even if your form has. Some things never will, Naruto agreed. They returned to the surface in thoughtful silence. The discovery complicated everything, suggesting the dimensional collapse that had transformed Naruto and Yujito wasn't an isolated incident but potentially the beginning of something larger. Outside, dusk had fallen, bathing the mountains in purple light. Rimuru created a communication crystal, sending instructions to Tempest for the creation of a permanent monitoring station at the cave. We should return to the city, she said. This development needs to be discussed with my advisors. Both of you, she nodded to Naruto and Yujito, have valuable insight we'll need. Milim pouted. But what about our feast? I was promised food and fun. The feast can still happen, Rimuru assured her. But first, we need to understand what we're dealing with. As they prepared to depart, Naruto found himself standing beside Yujito, both gazing at the mountains that now comprised his territory, the consumption domain. So you're a demon lord now, she said quietly. Apparently. And I'm some kind of bijou hybrid. She flexed her hand, tiny flames dancing between her fingers. Not what either of us expected. No, Naruto agreed. But we're alive. And not alone. You never were good at being alone, Yujito observed with unexpected perception. Even with the whole world against you, you built connections. Naruto watched Rimuru organizing their departure, Milim enthusiastically describing battle techniques to one of Rimuru's guards. Some skills transfer between worlds, I guess. Yujito's lips curved in a rare smile. So what now, Lord Gluttony? The title sounded strange, yet not entirely wrong. Now we adapt. Learn. Prepare. Naruto's gaze returned to the mountain concealing the sealed dimensional crack. Something's coming. And I think we're just seeing the beginning. As if affirming his words, a distant rumble of thunder rolled across the darkening sky. Just another Tuesday for us, isn't it? Yujito said dryly. Naruto laughed, the sound carrying across the mountain plateau. Whatever came next, he would face it as he always had, with determination, creativity, and the help of whatever friends he could gather along the way. Some things truly never changed. Chapter 2, Bonds Beyond Dimensions. 3 weeks had transformed the consumption domain. Where once stood Avrax's oppressive fortress of bone and obsidian, a new capital emerged, neither wholly shinobi nor entirely demonic, but something unprecedented. Naruto had named it Uzushio, honoring his mother's destroyed homeland while embracing this second chance. From his vantage point atop the central tower, a spiral structure that combined organic materials with crystalline reinforcement, Naruto observed workers completing the eastern district. Unlike Avrax, who had subjugated his territory's inhabitants, Naruto had offered partnership. The response had been overwhelming. Beings of all types contributed their unique abilities to this reimagined domain. Impressive for less than a month's work, Yujito remarked, landing silently beside him. Her transformation had continued, elegant feline ears now crowned her head, while her movements had become impossibly fluid. The integration with Matatabi's essence progressed differently than Naruto's with Kurama, yet the results proved equally fascinating. The shadow clone's help, Naruto admitted. At any moment, hundreds of golden duplicates assisted throughout the domain, their shared experiences flowing back to him each evening in a torrent of information. Though I still don't understand why they're calling those terraced gardens the Glutton's Bounty. Yujito's lips quirked. Your subjects have an interesting sense of humor. They're still adjusting to a demon lord who doesn't actually consume them. I consumed that mountain range, Naruto protested, gesturing toward the western horizon where perfectly shaped peaks now formed a natural barrier. Reshaped it into a defensive position. Yes, and then spent 3 days creating ecological habitats for displaced wildlife. Her tone carried fond exasperation. Most terrifying demon lord ever. Naruto shrugged, unrepentant. His leadership style reflected his core beliefs, not Avrax's legacy or others' expectations. Any updates from the monitoring station? Yujito's expression sobered. The dimensional crack hasn't expanded, but its energy signature has intensified. The barrier holds, though Rimuru's specialists have requested additional reinforcement. Their discussion halted as a messenger approached, a young harpy with vibrant green plumage. She landed with a flourish, then bowed deeply. Lord Gluttony, forgive the interruption. The Border Patrol reports a delegation approaching from the north. They bear no recognizable insignia but request an audience. Their leader claims to be a flame master. Naruto and Yujito exchanged glances. Neither Avrax's memories nor their knowledge of this world provided context for such a title. How many? Yujito asked. 5 individuals. Powerful, by the patrol captain's assessment, but maintaining a non-aggressive posture. Naruto nodded. Escort them to the reception hall. We'll meet them formally. As the messenger departed, Naruto shifted his appearance. His casual attire flowed into more formal regalia, a golden haori over black clothing, emblazoned with the Uzumaki spiral merged with the demon lord of gluttony's sigil. Not ostentatious like Avrax's blood-encrusted finery, but dignified and unmistakably authoritative. Shall I summon the council? Yujito asked, referring to the diverse advisors Naruto had gathered, representatives from throughout his territory who provided perspective beyond Avrax's limited memories. No need yet. Let's assess these visitors first. They traversed the tower via a gravity manipulation system inspired by Konoha's Hokage Tower but enhanced with this world's magical principles. The reception hall below, a vast chamber with living walls of luminescent plants and flowing water features, had been designed for diplomacy rather than intimidation. They'd barely taken positions when the delegation arrived. Four individuals formed a protective square around a fifth, a woman whose presence immediately captured attention. She wasn't physically imposing, perhaps in her 40s, with shoulder-length brown hair streaked with premature silver. Yet she carried herself with the unmistakable confidence of someone who had faced extraordinary challenges and survived. "Welcome to Uzushio," Naruto greeted them, standing rather than sitting on the crystalline chair that served as his nominal throne. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki, Demon Lord of Gluttony. This is Yujito Ni, my advisor and commander." The woman stepped forward, her escorts remaining vigilant. She wore a fitted combat suit of unfamiliar material, crimson geometric patterns running across its surface like circuitry. A mask hung at her hip, a stylized face with flame patterns. "I am Shizue Izawa, last of the flame masters of the Eastern Barrier States." Her voice carried the weight of someone accustomed to command. "I seek the new demon lord who, according to reports, is reconstructing the consumption domain on principles of cooperation rather than subjugation." "Those reports are accurate," Naruto confirmed. "What brings a flame master to our borders?" Shizue studied him with penetrating intensity. "Curiosity, initially. Demon lords rarely change their natures. When Avrax fell and his territory transformed almost overnight, many assumed a conqueror had simply replaced a tyrant." Her gaze swept the hall. "This is unexpected." "I'm frequently unexpected," Naruto replied with a hint of his old grin. "It's something of a specialty." One of Shizue's companions, a tall woman with elaborate braids, whispered something urgent. Shizue nodded before addressing Naruto again. "My associate senses an unusual energy signature from both of you. Not typical for demons, even demon lords." Yujito tensed slightly beside him. Naruto considered his response carefully. While he'd been open with Rimuru about his origins, strategic caution seemed appropriate with unknown visitors. "We come from elsewhere," he said simply. "Our energies reflect that." "Elsewhere," Shizue repeated. "Another dimension, perhaps. One where humans possess powers similar to monsters." The precision of her guess startled both Naruto and Yujito. Before either could respond, Shizue removed her glove and extended her bare arm. Ghostly flames danced across her skin, not magical energy as Naruto had come to recognize it, but unmistakably chakra. "I was summoned to this world decades ago," Shizue explained. "Pulled from Earth, Japan, specifically, by a foolish mage. I was a child then, possessing no special abilities. Later, I was possessed by an Ifrit, granting me these flames. But you," her eyes locked with Naruto's, "your energy feels like neither human nor monster nor spirit. It feels like the barriers between worlds." The revelation changed everything. Here stood someone who understood displacement, transformation, adaptation, experiences central to Naruto's and Yujito's current situation. Yet caution remained warranted. "Why seek me specifically?" Naruto asked. Shizue replaced her glove deliberately. "Because something is happening to the dimensional barriers. Tears appearing. Energy bleeding through. The Eastern Barrier States exist to monitor and maintain the boundaries between realms, yet our ancient methods are failing against these new intrusions." She straightened her shoulders. "We need allies who understand the nature of these breaches. Your energy signature suggests you might." Naruto exchanged a glance with Yujito, receiving her subtle nod. "We've encountered one such breach already. A dimensional crack leaking energy we recognized from our world." "Then you know the danger." Shizue's expression hardened. "These aren't natural phenomena. Something, or someone, is systematically weakening the barriers between dimensions." "To what end?" Yujito asked. Conquest, perhaps. Or something worse. Shizue gestured to her companions. My order has protected this realm's boundaries for centuries, but we're dwindling. The Eastern Barrier states have fallen one by one to entities emerging from these breaches. We seek coalition with powers capable of understanding and addressing the threat. Naruto considered the implications. A systematic attack on dimensional barriers aligned with his suspicions about the crack they discovered. If fragments of the Ten-Tails energy were penetrating this world, catastrophic consequences might follow. We share your concerns, he said finally. I propose an alliance of information sharing, at minimum. We have contacts with the Jura Tempest Federation who would likely join such a coalition. Relief flickered across Shizue's features, quickly masked by professional composure. Acceptable. I brought tactical data on breach locations and energy patterns. As if on cue, one of her companions produced a crystalline device, a data storage system more advanced than anything Naruto had encountered in this world. Technological, not magical. From your original world, he asked, gesturing to the device. Shizue nodded. Adapted to function here. Dimensional travelers bring more than just themselves when crossing over. The observation triggered a thought. You mentioned being summoned decades ago. Have you encountered others from Earth? Or from any dimension besides this one? Several, Shizue confirmed. Though most struggle to adapt. The possession that granted me fire mastery nearly destroyed me. Others aren't so fortunate in their transformations. Naruto thought of his own metamorphosis, the integration with Kurama, becoming a slime, inheriting Avrax's title. Traumatic yet ultimately empowering. Yujito had experienced something similar, merging with Matatabi's essence. Both had adapted because of their previous experiences as Jinchuriki. We should discuss this further, he decided. Yujito, please arrange quarters for our guests. Lady Shizue, I invite you to join us for the evening meal, where we can speak more freely. Shizue inclined her head. I accept your hospitality, Lord Gluttony. As Yujito led the delegation away, Naruto remained in the reception hall, processing this development. A human from another Earth, transformed by this world's energies, leading an order dedicated to maintaining dimensional boundaries. The parallels to his own situation couldn't be ignored. More importantly, Shizue's arrival confirmed his suspicions about the dimensional crack. Not an isolated incident but part of a pattern, possibly an orchestrated attack. Which raised the question, who possessed both the knowledge and power to assault the barriers between worlds? In his former life, he would have immediately suspected the Otsutsuki clan. Here, without more information, he could only speculate. But one thing seemed certain, the dimensional collapse that had brought him and Yujito to this world might have been merely the beginning of something far more extensive. Naruto created a shadow clone. Inform Rimuru about our visitors and this new information. Request a secure communication as soon as possible. As the clone departed, Naruto moved to the hall's central water feature, a flowing spiral pool that served as both decoration and a scrying medium. He passed his hand over the surface, watching ripples distort his reflection. The face looking back combined elements of his former self with his new nature, whisker marks still visible, but eyes now containing swirling golden patterns that reflected his slime essence. Who are you now, Naruto Uzumaki? He murmured to his reflection. Demon Lord of Gluttony? Former shinobi? Something entirely new? The water offered no answers, only questions rippling outward in ever-widening circles. Dinner with Shizue proved illuminating. In the privacy of Naruto's personal dining chamber, a suspended glass platform overlooking Uzushio's nighttime splendor, she spoke more freely about her experiences. Decades spent battling incursions from other dimensions had hardened her, yet underneath remained the displaced child from another world. The Ifrit's possession nearly consumed me, she explained, flames briefly dancing in her eyes at the memory. I learned to control it, eventually channel it, but the process cost me years and companions. You've been fighting these dimensional threats alone? Yujito asked, genuine respect in her voice. Not entirely alone. The Flame Masters once numbered in the hundreds, before the systematic attacks began. Shizue sipped from a cup of tea, her composure perfect despite the weight of her words. Now fewer than 30 remain. Each breach weakens us further, either through combat losses or the corrupting influence of extradimensional energies. Naruto leaned forward. Corrupting influence. Prolonged exposure to certain dimensional energies affects living beings. Changes them physically, mentally. Shizue's eyes met his. Some transformations, like yours or mine, can be controlled, channeled constructively. Others result in madness, mutation, loss of self. The implications chilled Naruto. His own transformation had been cushioned by Kurama's chakra and his Uzumaki vitality. Yujito had similarly adapted due to her experience as a Jinchuriki. Others might not fare as well. You believe these breaches are deliberate, he stated rather than asked. The pattern is too systematic for natural phenomena. Breaches appear at nexus points where dimensional barriers are naturally thinner, but they're being forcibly widened, stabilized. Someone with extensive knowledge of interdimensional mechanics is coordinating this. For what purpose? Yujito pressed. Invasion, perhaps. Or extraction. Shizue set down her cup precisely. Your dimensional crack, what energy signature did it emit? Naruto hesitated before answering. In our world, there existed a primordial entity called the Ten Tails, the original source of all chakra. The energy bleeding through resembled its chakra signature. The crack is targeting your specific dimension, then. Shizue's expression grew thoughtful. Each breach we've encountered seems calibrated to a particular dimensional frequency. As if the orchestrator is searching for specific energy types across multiple dimensions. Harvesting power sources, Yujito suggested, her analytical mind connecting patterns. Or looking for something specific, Naruto added. His thoughts turned to the Otsutsuki clan's dimensional traveling, their parasitic consumption of worlds. Could they have survived the collapse somehow? Found their way to this world? Their discussion paused as a communication. Crystal activated, Rimuru's response to Naruto's message. The blue-haired demon lord's image materialized above the table. Naruto, your timing is impeccable, Rimuru said without preamble. We've detected 2 new dimensional anomalies within the past hour, one near our western border, another within the former Eurasania territory. Former? Naruto questioned. Carrion abdicated his position as Beast Master. The territory is currently under temporary administration by the Sarayan Kingdom, which complicates matters. Rimuru noticed Shizue's presence. I see you have company. After brief introductions and explanation of Shizue's role, Rimuru continued, this confirms what our researchers suspected. These breaches aren't isolated incidents but coordinated events. The question is, by whom? And how do we stop them? Yujito added. Rimuru's expression turned grim. The breach near our border is expanding rapidly. I'm sending a containment team, but based on preliminary readings, it's significantly larger than the one you discovered. We'll join your team, Naruto decided immediately. Lady Shizue's expertise could prove invaluable, and both Yujito and I have direct experience with the energy signatures involved. I was hoping you'd say that, Rimuru admitted with a smile that briefly softened her serious demeanor. Milim is already there, containing the breach through sheer power, but her methods lack finesse. Naruto winced, imagining the hyperactive demon Lord of Destruction's idea of containment. We'll depart immediately. Send coordinates. After the communication ended, preparations moved swiftly. Shizue integrated her team with Naruto's security forces with professional efficiency. Within 20 minutes, they were airborne aboard a transport creature, a massive ray-like being that served the consumption domain as both sentinel and carrier. Soaring through the night sky, Naruto found himself standing beside Shizue at the transport's edge, both gazing at the distant glow marking their destination. Wind whipped around them, yet neither seemed affected. "You've adapted remarkably well to your transformation," Shizue observed. "Most dimensional travelers struggle for years to find equilibrium." "I had practice adapting to unexpected power," Naruto replied. "Being a Jinchuriki taught me flexibility." Jinchuriki? Human container for a tailed beast, a being of immense chakra. "I carried the nine-tailed fox, Kurama. Yujito held the two-tailed cat, Matatabi. The relationship was complicated." Shizue studied him with new understanding. "That explains your successful integration. You'd already experienced merging with another entity's power." "Not just merging. Partnership." Naruto's voice softened with memory. "Kurama wasn't just power to be used, he was a companion, eventually a friend. When the dimensional collapse happened, his essence protected me, transformed along with me." "You speak of this being with genuine affection," Shizue noted, surprise evident in her tone. "Demons, monsters, humans, labels matter less than choices, actions, connections." Naruto gestured to the domain spread below them. "That philosophy built Uzushio. It's why your request for alliance received immediate consideration rather than suspicion." Something shifted in Shizue's expression, a softening, perhaps reassessment. "In my decades in this world, I've encountered few demons with such perspective. Most view humans as either prey or tools." "I'm not most demons," Naruto said simply. "No," Shizue agreed, the ghost of a smile touching her lips. "You certainly aren't." Their conversation paused as they approached their destination. The breach was a significant understatement. A massive tear in reality hovered above a forest clearing, crimson energy spiraling outward in violent tendrils. Below, a petite figure with pink hair stood with arms outstretched, visible power radiating from her form to create a containment barrier that strained against the breach's expansion. Milim, Naruto identified for Shizue's benefit. Demon Lord of Destruction. Incredibly powerful, somewhat unpredictable. "I've heard legends," Shizue murmured, eyes widening slightly at the display of raw power. They landed a safe distance from the breach. Rimuru awaited them, along with a team of specialists in magical containment. Her expression showed relief at their arrival. "It's growing faster than our barriers can contain it," she explained after quick greetings. "Milim's brute force approach is the only thing preventing complete expansion." Naruto surveyed the situation with both visual and energetic senses. Unlike the previous crack, this breach pulsed with multiple energy signatures, not just the Ten-Tails chakra but other unfamiliar patterns. "It's not just drawing from our dimension," he realized aloud. "This breach connects to multiple realms simultaneously." "A convergence point," Shizue confirmed, donning her flame-patterned mask. With it in place, her presence changed, power radiating more visibly as the mask channeled her Ifrit abilities. "These are the most dangerous. Energies from different dimensions react unpredictably when mixed." Milim noticed their arrival and waved enthusiastically, nearly losing concentration in the process. The breach surged momentarily before she refocused. "Naruto. Rimuru. You came to play," she called, her childlike demeanor incongruous with the apocalyptic scenario she single-handedly contained. "Is she always like this?" Shizue asked quietly. "Always," Rimuru and Naruto confirmed simultaneously. Yujito had already begun analysis, her enhanced senses providing detailed information. Multiple chakra signatures within, some familiar, others unknown. The breach is still expanding, though Milim's containment has slowed the process. "We need a more permanent solution," Rimuru stated. "My barrier specialists have prepared a containment ritual, but it requires focused application at the breach's core. Which means someone has to get close enough to deploy it," Naruto concluded. Shizue stepped forward. "My mask provides protection against dimensional energies. I've sealed breaches before." "Not like this one," Yujito countered. "The chakra concentration would overwhelm conventional protections." Naruto studied the breach thoughtfully. My slime body has unique resistances. I absorbed Tentail's chakra during the previous incident without permanent damage. Too dangerous, Rimuru objected immediately. This breach is orders of magnitude larger, with multiple energy types. Even your adaptive capabilities have limits, Naruto. Their debate halted as a new energy signature manifested, not from the breach but from the forest behind them. Naruto turned, sensing a presence that somehow felt simultaneously unfamiliar and nostalgic. From the shadows emerged a woman of ethereal beauty. Flowing black hair framed a pale face marked with red patterns that resembled both Inuzuka clan tattoos and this world's Yukai markings. 9 white-tipped tails swayed behind her, each emanating subtle but distinct magical signatures. Her crimson eyes held ancient wisdom and unmistakable mischief. Such serious faces, she remarked, her voice melodious yet carrying undertones that resonated with Naruto's very essence. Discussing who gets to sacrifice themselves, I presume. How tediously predictable. Kurenai, Rimuru identified, wariness evident in her posture. The 9-tailed Kitsune sage. Your presence is unexpected. Is it? Kurenai smiled, revealing delicate fangs. A convergence breach forms, threatening multiple dimensions, and you didn't expect the guardian of dimensional boundaries to notice? I'm wounded, Demon Lord Rimuru. Naruto stared, momentarily speechless. This being shared a name with his former sensei, yet obviously wasn't the same person. However, her energy signature contained unmistakable elements of Fox nature chakra, resonating with the remnants of Kurama within him. Kurenai's gaze shifted to him, her smile deepening. Ah, the new demon lord of gluttony. How fascinating. You carry the essence of one of my kin from another dimension. A powerful 9-tailed entity, if I'm not mistaken. Kurama, Naruto confirmed, finding his voice. The 9-tailed fox from my world. You sense him? Of course. Fox recognizes fox across dimensional boundaries. She approached with fluid grace, circling Naruto with undisguised curiosity. Though your particular combination is unique. Human, fox spirit, primordial slime, demon lord, quite the amalgamation of contradictory natures. Shizue stepped forward, flame mask glowing. You claim to be a guardian of dimensional boundaries, yet these breaches proliferate. Where have you been, sage? Kurenai's expression cooled. Watch your tone, little flame. I've sealed 17 breaches in the past month alone across 9 different territories. This particular convergence point, however, requires more than my individual power. Her gaze swept over the assembled group. It requires a symphony of abilities working in precise harmony. Then you'll help us? Rimuru asked. I'll direct you, Kurenai corrected. Each of you possesses a piece of what's needed. Together, properly orchestrated, you might successfully contain this breach. She pointed to the tear in reality, where Milim continued her solo containment effort. But we must act quickly. Your pink-haired friend's power is impressive but fundamentally unsuited for prolonged dimensional work. As if confirming her assessment, the breach pulsed violently, forcing Milim to increase her power output. The strain showed on her face, rare vulnerability from the normally carefree demon lord. Tell us what to do, Naruto said decisively. Kurenai's smile returned, approval glinting in her crimson eyes. So direct. I can see why my counterpart from your dimension might have been drawn to your spirit. She turned serious, gesturing them closer. The containment requires 5 focal points, each anchored by a different energy signature. She quickly assigned positions. Rimuru would provide stable magical foundation, Shizue's flame mastery would purify corrupted energies, Yujito's transformed Bija chakra would neutralize specific frequencies, Naruto's unique composite nature would serve as the central anchor, and Kurenai herself would weave the actual sealing pattern between them. What about me? Milim called, overhearing despite the distance. You, delightful destroyer, will do what you do best, Kurenai replied. When I give the signal, you'll deliver a perfectly calibrated strike to collapse the breach's structural integrity, allowing our seal to close it permanently. Milim grinned. I get to smash it. Perfect. Preparations moved quickly under Kurenai's precise direction. Ritual circles were inscribed, positions calculated to the centimeter, energy signatures balanced. Throughout, the Kitsune sage moved with absolute confidence, adjusting components with centuries of apparent experience. As they finalized preparations, Kurenai approached Naruto privately. Your particular nature is crucial to this working, she explained, close enough that her tails occasionally brushed against him, contact that sent odd ripples through his slime essence. The seal must be anchored to something that resonates with multiple dimensional frequencies simultaneously. You are a being of genuine dimensional liminality. Meaning? You exist at the threshold between worlds, between states of being. Her expression softened fractionally. It's a lonely position, straddling multiple realities without fully belonging to any. I recognize it well. The observation struck deeper than Naruto expected. Since his transformation, he'd adapted, moved forward, built new connections, yet a part of him remained between worlds, between identities. Not quite human anymore, not originally a demon or slime. Does it get easier? He asked impulsively. Kurenai's eyes widened slightly at the direct question. Then, unexpectedly, she laughed, a sound like silver bells. Straightforward, aren't you? No philosophical pondering, just right to the heart. Her expression turned contemplative. It doesn't get easier. But it becomes more interesting. Liminal beings see patterns others miss, forge connections others cannot imagine. The loneliness never quite vanishes, but neither does the wonder. Before Naruto could respond, she'd moved away, calling everyone to their positions. The moment for philosophical discussion had passed, now came practical application. They took their assigned places around the breach, Rimuru to the north, Shizue east, Yujito south, Naruto west, and Kurenai at the center. Milim hovered above, awaiting her cue. Each participant began channeling their unique energy signature according to Kurenai's instructions. The ritual began subtly, threads of power extending between participants, weaving a complex lattice around the breach. Kurenai's 9 tails moved independently, each directing different aspects of the sealing pattern. Her hands formed unfamiliar signs while she chanted in a language that seemed to shift between multiple linguistic systems simultaneously. Naruto focused on his role, serving as a dimensional anchor. He extended his awareness into the breach itself, his unique composite nature allowing him to perceive the various realms connected through this convergence point. Glimpses flashed through his consciousness, a barren landscape of white trees, a technological metropolis of gleaming towers, a battlefield where giants battled with familiar chakra techniques. The elemental nations? Not quite, similar yet fundamentally different. Parallel dimensions, not his original home. As the seal strengthened, resistance grew. Something within the breach pushed back, not random energy but coordinated force. Intelligence. Purpose. Something's fighting the seal, Naruto called out, strain evident in his voice. Yes, Kurenai confirmed, her own expression showing rare concentration. This breach isn't merely passive. It's being maintained from the other side. By what? Rimuru demanded, her own magical output increasing to counter the resistance. Not what? Who? Kurenai's tails lashed with sudden agitation. There's a consciousness directing this breach, using it to observe us, perhaps preparing for something more. Naruto extended his senses further, trying to identify the presence Kurenai had detected. Deep within the swirling energies, he encountered it, a cold, analytical awareness studying their sealing technique with clinical interest. Not hostile exactly, but utterly alien, devoid of empathy or moral constraint. For a brief moment, that consciousness noticed his probe. Recognition flashed, not of Naruto specifically, but of the chakra signature he carried. Interesting. The 9-tailed vessel survived transformation. Useful data point. The thought wasn't verbalized but somehow transmitted directly into Naruto's awareness. Before he could respond, the presence withdrew deeper into the breach. "It knows me," Naruto said aloud, shaken. "Or rather, it recognizes Kurama's chakra signature." "Concentrate on the seal," Kurenai commanded sharply. "Whatever entity oversees these breaches, we'll deal with it later. For now, we close this doorway." The sealing intensified, power flowing from all participants into Kurenai's increasingly complex pattern. The Kitsune sage's tails glowed with accumulated energy, each representing a different sealing principle. As the pattern neared completion, she called to Milim. "Now, Destroyer. Strike at the core." Milim didn't hesitate. Her compact form became a missile of concentrated destructive energy, plummeting toward the breach's center. At the last possible moment, Kurenai's tails snapped forward, wrapping the destructive energy in sealing patterns before it impacted. The resulting collision defied conventional physics. Milim's attack didn't create an explosion but rather an implosion, a collapse of dimensional space that pulled the breach's edges inward. Simultaneously, the sealing pattern activated fully, capturing the collapsing energy and binding it into a stable configuration. Light erupted from the convergence point, not the crimson energy of before but pure white radiance that momentarily blinded everyone. When vision returned, the breach had vanished, replaced by a shimmering seal floating in midair, a complex mandala of interlocking symbols from multiple magical and chakra traditions. "It worked," Yujito breathed, her cat-like eyes wide with relief. "Of course it worked," Kurenai replied, though her slightly disheveled appearance belied her confident tone. "I am a dimensional expert, after all." Milim dropped from the sky, landing with unnecessary force that cratered the ground beneath her. "That was fun. Can we do another one?" Rimuru approached the floating seal cautiously. "Is it permanent?" "As permanent as anything in a multiverse of fluid possibilities can be," Kurenai answered cryptically. "The breach is sealed, but the weakened dimensional boundary remains. It will require periodic reinforcement." Naruto studied the seal, recognizing elements of Fuinjutsu from his world integrated with this dimension's magical structures. "You combine techniques from multiple realms." "Naturally. Dimensional problems require multidimensional solutions." Kurenai's tail settled into a more relaxed pattern behind her. This particular breach was attempting to establish a permanent connection between 5 specific dimensions, including your original world. "Why those dimensions specifically?" Shizue asked, removing her mask now that immediate danger had passed. "Each contains a unique energy signature valuable to whoever orchestrates these breaches." Kurenai's gaze settled on Naruto. "Including the chakra of tailed beasts from your dimension." The implication chilled Naruto. "You believe these breaches are targeting Bijou chakra specifically?" "Among other energy types, yes. The pattern is consistent across all convergence points I've encountered." Kurenai brushed debris from her elaborate robes. "Someone is sampling energies from multiple dimensions, perhaps seeking the optimal combination for some greater working. Or building towards something larger," Rimuru suggested, her analytical mind connecting patterns. "These breaches could be preliminary tests before attempting a larger-scale dimensional merger." Shizue nodded grimly. "Consistent with what we've observed in the Eastern Barrier states. Escalating breach complexity and frequency." Milim, surprisingly, contributed a relevant observation. "It reminds me of the old times, when dimensions were more fluid. Before the Great Separation established firm boundaries." When everyone stared at her, she shrugged. "What? I'm super old. I remember things." "The child destroyer speaks truth," Kurenai confirmed. "The current rigid dimensional boundaries are not the natural state of the multiverse but rather an imposed order. Established eons ago precisely to prevent uncontrolled blending of incompatible energies. And someone is systematically undermining that separation," Yujito concluded. "But who has both the knowledge and power for such a project?" Rimuru wondered. Naruto's thoughts returned to the consciousness he'd briefly encountered within the breach, that cold, analytical awareness that had recognized Kurama's chakra signature. Something about it felt disturbingly familiar, yet he couldn't quite place the connection. "Whoever they are, they're watching us," he said quietly. "Learning from our countermeasures, adapting their approach." Indeed. Kurenai turned to face the assembled group, her expression uncharacteristically serious. "Which is why I've decided to join your little coalition." "Temporarily, of course." Rimuru's eyebrows rose. "You're offering alliance. That's unprecedented." "Unprecedented times demand unprecedented measures," Kurenai replied with a theatrical sigh. "Besides, you've assembled an intriguing group. The entertainment value alone might be worth my involvement." Despite her flippant tone, Naruto sensed genuine concern beneath Kurenai's carefully constructed facade. The Kitsune sage was worried, perhaps even afraid, of whatever entity orchestrated these breaches. "We welcome your expertise," he said simply. Kurenai's crimson gaze settled on him, something unreadable flickering in their depths. Such straightforward acceptance. How refreshingly naive. Her tails swayed hypnotically. Or perhaps strategically wise. Time will tell which. As they prepared to depart, Naruto found himself standing beside the sealed breach, studying the complex patterns of the dimensional barrier. His slime nature allowed him to perceive energies invisible to most, the delicate balance of forces now containing what had been a potentially catastrophic convergence point. "Admiring our work?" Kurenai appeared beside him silently, her presence radiating ancient power despite her relaxed posture. "Trying to understand it," Naruto admitted. "In my world, I never mastered advanced Fuinjutsu despite my Uzumaki heritage. This is several levels beyond anything I've encountered. Your world's sealing arts are but a shadow of true dimensional manipulation," Kurenai observed. "Though they stem from the same original principles. The Uzumaki clan of your dimension preserved fragments of knowledge that originated long before your world's current configuration." "You know about the Uzumaki clan?" Kurenai smiled mysteriously. "I know many things about many dimensions. Kitsune spirits exist across multiple realities, though our manifestations differ. In some worlds we are yokai, in others bijou, in yet others gods or demons. We observe, remember, occasionally interfere." She reached out, one delicate finger tracing a symbol within the floating seal. "Your particular dimensional origin interests me. It vibrates at a frequency that resonates with ancient patterns. And you, Naruto Uzumaki, carry elements of that resonance amplified through your transformations. Is that why you're really joining us? Scientific curiosity?" Kurenai laughed softly. "So direct." "No, little fox slime demon. I join you because dimensional stability serves my interests. And because," her expression turned momentarily distant, "I recognize the signature of whoever orchestrates these breaches. An old acquaintance. One whose ambitions previously required correction." Before Naruto could press for details, she turned away, tails swaying as she rejoined the others. Her casual dismissal couldn't hide the genuine concern he'd glimpsed beneath her carefully maintained facade. Whatever entity lurked behind these dimensional breaches, even a being as ancient and powerful as Kurenai approached the conflict with caution. Not a reassuring thought. As they departed, Naruto cast one final glance at the sealed breach. The encounter had raised more questions than it answered, yet one thing seemed increasingly clear: his and Yujito's arrival in this dimension hadn't been mere accident. Whether as targets, catalysts, or potential counters, they were somehow integral to whatever cosmic game unfolded across the multiverse. The real question was, who had moved them across dimensions, and to what ultimate purpose? Chapter 3, Convergence of Fate's ancient stone formations jutted from mist-shrouded earth like grasping fingers, their surfaces etched with symbols belonging to no single civilization. Dawn hadn't yet broken over this remote valley, a place unmarked on any modern map, forgotten by all save those who guarded dimensional secrets. Here, where reality felt paper-thin, Cheyenne knelt in silent meditation, her ceremonial robes pooled around her slender form. Visions cascaded through her consciousness, fragmentary glimpses of intertwined futures branching like countless silver threads. For centuries she had interpreted these prophetic strands, guiding her people away from catastrophe. But lately, the patterns had changed. Every possible timeline converged toward a singular nexus point, a cosmic intersection where dimensions themselves collided. And at that convergence point stood a figure bathed in golden light, neither human nor demon, but something transcendent. Cheyenne's eyes snapped open, violet irises luminous in the pre-dawn darkness. "The golden demon stands at the crossroads of worlds," she whispered, voice carrying ritual weight. As was foretold in the ancient compact. Rising gracefully, she faced her assembled acolytes, the last remnants of a once powerful priesthood dedicated to maintaining dimensional balance. "Prepare for journey. We must find the demon lord of gluttony before the seventh seal breaks." One acolyte stepped forward, concern evident beneath formal deference. "High Priestess, the dimensional nexus lies within contested territory. Multiple factions guard the approaches. The pathways of fate care nothing for political boundaries," Cheyenne replied, gathering her divination tools, crystals and scrolls inherited through generations of seers. "Besides, we won't travel alone. The golden demon's gathering has already begun, drawing those bound by destiny's threads." Her gaze lifted toward the distant mountains where, beyond normal sight, reality already thinned dangerously. 7 days remained before the convergence reached critical threshold. 7 days to find the golden demon who haunted her visions, this Naruto whose decisions would determine which version of reality survived the coming cataclysm. "The old prophecies speak truly," she murmured, more to herself than her followers. "The boundaries between worlds grow thin when the primordial powers awaken. We stand at cycle's end, and perhaps cycle's beginning." As Cheyenne and her acolytes departed their sanctuary, unseen observers monitored from dimensional shadows. Ancient entities that had orchestrated cosmic events across eons exchanged silent communications. The prophetic priestess moved exactly as their calculations predicted, another piece positioning itself on the multidimensional game board. Soon all necessary catalysts would converge. The experiment could proceed to its final phase. 100 miles distant, in Uzushio's central tower, Naruto stood surrounded by holographic displays generated through a combination of magic and technology. Maps of confirmed dimensional breach sites floated beside energy pattern analyses and ancient texts on interdimensional theory. 2 weeks of intensive investigation had yielded a disturbing pattern. "The breaches form a specific geometric configuration," Yujito observed, manipulating one display to overlay a star-like pattern across the mapped anomalies. 7 outer points creating a containment diagram with an 8th position at center. "A summoning array," Rimuru confirmed, her normally cheerful demeanor subdued by their discoveries. She had arrived in Uzushio 3 days prior, bringing specialists and resources from Tempest. Designed to channel energy from multiple dimensions toward a central convergence point. "Which we've identified here," Shizue added, indicating a mountainous region at the pattern's center, a location precisely between their territories. The dimensional nexus, according to ancient Eastern Barrier state records. Kurenai, lounging seemingly disinterested nearby, flicked one of her 9 tails dismissively. Such an unimaginative name for reality's most significant intersection. The ancients called it Ashihara, the pivot of worlds. "Whatever its name, something massive is building there," Naruto said, studying energy readings that increased exponentially day by day. His slime nature had evolved further, allowing him to directly perceive dimensional frequencies through contact with specialized crystals. The convergence reaches critical threshold in 7 days. Milim, uncharacteristically serious, hovered cross-legged above them. "It feels like before, when dimensions were being separated. But backwards. Like everything's being squished together again." "That's precisely what's happening," Kurenai confirmed, finally abandoning her affected nonchalance. Her crimson eyes narrowed as she joined them at the display. "The Great Separation established firm dimensional boundaries eons ago. Now those boundaries are being systematically dismantled. By who? Yujito pressed. And why? Before anyone could respond, a sentry's communication crystal activated. Lord Gluttony, a delegation approaches our eastern boundary. They identify themselves as the priesthood of dimensional harmony led by High Priestess Cheyenne. Naruto and Rimuru exchanged glances. Neither recognized the group, but given current circumstances, their timing seemed unlikely to be coincidental. Another player enters the game, Kurenai murmured, Nine Tails swaying with sudden interest. How deliciously complicated. The woman who entered Yuzushio's council chamber defied easy categorization. Pale lavender hair framed delicate features marked with ceremonial tattoos. Her robes combined elements from multiple cultural traditions, yet belonged to none specifically. But most striking were her eyes, violet irises containing complex geometric patterns that shifted when viewed directly. Naruto Uzumaki, Demon Lord of Gluttony, former Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails, dimensional catalyst, she intoned without introduction or preamble. You stand at the convergence point of 7,413 potential timelines. Absolute silence followed this pronouncement. Even Milim appeared momentarily speechless. You have me at a disadvantage, Naruto finally replied, maintaining diplomatic composure despite his surprise. I am Cheyenne, last High Priestess of Dimensional Harmony. Her gaze swept the assembled group, recognition flickering as she identified each member. The gathering proceeds as prophesied. The Slime Queen, the Destroyer Child, the Flame Master, the Cat Who Was Too, the Nine-Tailed Observer. Her eyes returned to Naruto. Catalysts and keystones, positioned precisely before convergence. You speak as if you expected us, Rimuru observed carefully. Expected? No. Foresaw? Yes. Cheyenne's formal demeanor softened fractionally. Dimensional convergence events occur in cycles spanning eons. My order maintains records of previous iterations, prophecies concerning the current cycle, and preliminary visions of what may follow. And what do these prophecies say about our current situation? Shizue asked. Cheyenne turned, pinning the Flame Master with her unsettling gaze. They speak of boundaries thinning, primordial powers awakening, and a golden demon standing at the crossroads of worlds. Her focus returned to Naruto. A being transformed through dimensional collapse, carrying the essence of ancient power, who must choose which version of reality survives. Naruto maintained outward calm, though internally, her words triggered uncomfortable resonance. Since arriving in this world, he'd adapted to each new development, becoming a slime, inheriting a demon lord title, building Yuzushio, forming alliances. Yet beneath these practical adaptations lurked deeper questions about purpose and identity he'd never fully resolved. These prophecies, he said carefully. How reliable have they proven historically? Prophecies don't predict single outcomes but probability clusters, Cheyenne replied. The current convergence manifests 7 primary potential configurations of reality. Which manifests depends largely on decisions made by key individuals, particularly you, Naruto Uzumaki. Why me specifically? Because you exist in dimensional liminality, simultaneously belonging to multiple realities without being bound exclusively to any. She stepped closer, studying him with unsettling intensity. Your unique transformation allows you to perceive and manipulate dimensional frequencies normally incompatible with conscious intervention. She's not wrong, Kurenai interjected, suddenly serious. Your composite nature, human, bijou, slime, demon lord, creates unprecedented dimensional resonance patterns. It's why our sealing technique worked against the convergence breach. Rimuru nodded thoughtfully. It also explains why the entity behind these breaches recognized your chakra signature specifically. The entity doesn't merely recognize him, Cheyenne stated. It created him, or rather, engineered the conditions that would transform him into his current state. This revelation landed like a physical blow. Naruto's carefully maintained composure faltered. You're saying my dimensional displacement wasn't accidental? Someone deliberately caused the collapse that brought me here. Caused it, guided it, and continues monitoring the results. Cheyenne's expression showed rare compassion. You are simultaneously experiment, catalyst, and potential countermeasure in a cosmic calculation spanning multiple dimensions. Silence descended as implications cascaded through everyone present. If true, everything they'd experienced, from Naruto's transformation to the dimensional breaches, represented components of some larger design rather than random phenomena. Who? Yujito finally asked, voice tight with controlled anger. Who possesses both the knowledge and power to manipulate dimensions so precisely? Cheyenne turned toward the dimensional displays still hovering nearby. The ancient texts name them Tenshura, the celestial manipulators. Entities that exist primarily in dimensional interstices rather than within any specific reality. I know them by another name, Kurenai said quietly, her customary mischief entirely absent. The Otsutsuki Collective. Naruto and Yujito both startled visibly. Otsutsuki. Naruto repeated. Like Kaguya. Kaguya was merely one manifestation, a dimensional fragment of the larger collective consciousness, Kurenai explained. The Otsutsuki exist across multiple dimensions simultaneously, harvesting unique energies from each reality to sustain their existence between worlds. In your dimension, they manifested as chakra-harvesting invaders, Cheyenne continued. In others, they appear differently, god beings, dimensional parasites, cosmic observers. Their true form exists outside conventional reality altogether. Rimuru's expression sharpened with sudden understanding. The dimensional breaches, they're sampling energy signatures from different realities. Precisely, Cheyenne confirmed. Preparing for a grand convergence that will allow them to simultaneously access all realities from a single nexus point. The dimensional nexus, Naruto said, understanding dawning. They're turning it into a permanent gateway. Cheyenne nodded grimly. In 7 days, the dimensional boundaries at the nexus will reach critical thinness. When that happens, the Otsutsuki Collective will establish a permanent convergence point, essentially merging all sampled dimensions partially. That sounds bad, Milim observed with characteristic understatement. Really bad. The sudden merger of incompatible dimensional frequencies would cause cascading reality failures, Shizue explained, her military mind quickly grasping strategic implications. Entire sections of each affected dimension would simply cease functioning according to their established physical laws. Billions would die across multiple dimensions, Yujito concluded quietly. Unless we prevent the convergence, Naruto stated, determination hardening his voice. Which means going to the dimensional nexus ourselves. Cheyenne's expression remained carefully neutral, though something like approval flickered briefly in her otherworldly eyes. The prophecies indicate multiple potential approaches to the nexus, each with different probability outcomes. Then we need more information, Rimuru decided. Everything you have on the nexus, previous convergence events, and especially these Otsutsuki entities. I brought all relevant prophecies and historical records, Cheyenne gestured to her acolytes, who stepped forward with ancient scrolls and crystalline data storage devices. But the most crucial information isn't documented, it's located within the nexus itself. Of course it is, Naruto muttered, a ghost of his old sardonic humor surfacing despite the gravity of their situation. Important information is always in the most dangerous possible location. Milim laughed, breaking the room's tension. Just like old adventures. Deadly danger, impossible odds, world-ending threats. Except this isn't just one world at risk, Yujito reminded her. It's multiple dimensions simultaneously. Even better. Milim clapped her hands excitedly. Bigger boom if we fail. Despite everything, Naruto found himself smiling at the pink-haired demon lord's irrepressible enthusiasm. Milim approached cosmic catastrophe with the same cheerful energy she brought to everything, a perspective simultaneously infuriating and oddly refreshing. Then we go to the nexus, Naruto decided. A focused expedition to gather information and assess the convergence directly. When? Shizue asked practically. Immediately, Cheyenne answered before Naruto could. The pathways to the nexus grow increasingly unstable as convergence approaches. What's possible today may be impossible tomorrow. Preparations proceeded with efficiency born from their previous collaborations. Rimuru coordinated with her Tempest specialists, Shizue briefed her Flame Masters on containment protocols, Yujito organized tactical support, and Milim primarily expressed enthusiastic anticipation for potential combat. Throughout these preparations, Naruto found himself increasingly aware of the distinctive ways each woman approached the crisis: Rimuru's methodical thoroughness, Yujito's precise analytical focus, Shizue's disciplined strategic thinking, Milim's fearless direct engagement, Kurenai's ancient wisdom beneath casual deflection, and now Cheyenne's prophetic perspective. Balancing multiple potential outcomes. Each brought unique strengths to their coalition, complementing one another in ways that transcended individual capabilities. And each, he realized with sudden clarity, had begun relating to him not merely as an ally but personally, interactions infused with distinctive relational undercurrents. Rimuru sought his perspective constantly, their shared experiences as transformed beings from other worlds creating unique understanding. Yujito maintained professional composure publicly while sharing quiet moments of mutual recognition as fellow former Jinchuriki. Shizue's initial wariness had evolved into respectful partnership with increasingly unguarded conversations. Milim had simply declared him her special friend, with childlike directness belying her ancient power. Kurenai watched him with ancient eyes containing equal parts amusement and genuine interest. And now Cheyenne studied him with the intense focus of someone who had foreseen multiple versions of his potential significance. The realization disoriented him momentarily. In his previous life, romantic entanglements had always seemed secondary to more immediate concerns: survival, protecting his precious people, pursuing his dream of becoming Hokage. Here, transformed and repositioned within an entirely different dimensional context, he found himself central to a complex web of emerging connections he hadn't consciously sought but couldn't deny. Troubled thoughts before a crucial mission. Kurenai's voice interrupted his contemplation. She had approached silently, nine tails swaying in complex patterns behind her. Or perhaps troubled heart. Naruto met her knowing gaze directly. Both, if I'm honest. Honesty. How refreshingly direct. She smiled, revealing delicate fangs. Most beings I've encountered over the centuries would dissemble, particularly regarding matters of the heart. I've never seen much point in lying to myself or others, Naruto replied with a shrug. Especially before potentially world-ending situations. Kurenai laughed softly. A practical perspective. Though in this case, the proper term would be world's ending. Plural. Not helping. Perhaps not. She studied him thoughtfully. Yet I find your reaction intriguing. Most beings, when informed they're central to cosmic machinations spanning multiple dimensions, become either paralyzed by insignificance or inflated with self-importance. You demonstrate neither response. I've had practice being manipulated by entities with god complexes, Naruto said dryly. The scale may be different, but the principle remains the same. And the personal entanglements? Kurenai pressed, her perception uncomfortably accurate. The various threads connecting you to each member of our coalition. Naruto considered deflecting but ultimately chose honesty. Unexpected. Complicated. Not something I've had time to properly process. Time is luxury dimensions in crisis rarely afford, Kurenai observed. Yet connections between beings often prove more consequential than any tactical planning. Her expression turned uncharacteristically serious. The Otsutsuki collective fails to account for such factors in their calculations. They perceive energy patterns, dimensional frequencies, cosmic alignments, but consistently underestimate the impact of emotional bonds between sentient beings. Before Naruto could respond, Rimuru approached, final preparations apparently complete. We're ready to depart, she announced. Cheyenne says we need to move quickly, the dimensional pathway she's identified will only remain stable for a few more hours. Kurenai smiled enigmatically before slipping away, leaving Naruto with the distinct impression their conversation had served some purpose beyond mere curiosity on her part. The journey to the dimensional nexus defied conventional description. Cheyenne led them along paths that existed partially outside normal spacetime, accessible only through precise vibrational attunement she facilitated through ritual chanting. The terrain around them shifted between states, sometimes solid mountain paths, other times misty interdimensional corridors where reality itself seemed negotiable. Their core expedition included Naruto, Rimuru, Yujito, Shizue, Milim, Kurenai, and Cheyenne, each chosen for their unique abilities relevant to dimensional phenomena. Supporting forces maintained position at strategic points outside the Nexus region, ready to implement containment protocols if necessary. The boundary thins ahead, Cheyenne announced as they approached a massive stone archway embedded in mountainside. Ancient symbols covered its surface, some recognizable from Naruto's original dimension, others completely alien. Beyond this point, conventional dimensional physics become advisory rather than mandatory. Meaning? Yujito asked practically. Reality becomes increasingly subjective, Kurenai explained. What you perceive depends partly on your dimensional origin, partly on your expectations, partly on your innate nature. So we might all see different things. Rimuru clarified. Not entirely different, Cheyenne corrected. The core structure remains consistent, but details may vary based on individual perception filters. Like genjutsu, but built into reality itself, Naruto observed. A reasonable analogy, Shizue agreed. My order trained for such environments, though few have actually experienced them firsthand. Milim bounced impatiently. Less talking, more exploring. I want to see the reality-bendy place. Despite the gravity of their mission, Naruto found himself smiling at her enthusiasm. Even facing potential multidimensional catastrophe, Milim approached life with irrepressible excitement. They passed through the archway in precise formation established by Cheyenne, a pattern designed to maintain their dimensional cohesion within the nexus. The transition felt like passing through water tension, momentary resistance followed by sudden shift. Beyond stretched a landscape that simultaneously resembled a vast temple complex, a crystalline cave system, and an organic growth pattern. Massive pillars supported a ceiling that might have been stone, might have been energy, might have been living tissue. The ground beneath them pulsed with subtle rhythms reminiscent of heartbeat. Light emanated from everywhere and nowhere specifically, casting no shadows yet illuminating all surfaces. Welcome to Ashihara, Kurenai murmured, her 9 tails fanning out as if sensing currents invisible to others. The dimensional pivot point where all realities connect. It's beautiful, Rimuru whispered, her blue eyes wide with wonder. And it was beautiful, in an alien, unsettling way that transcended conventional aesthetics. Patterns formed and dissolved across surfaces, suggesting meanings just beyond conscious comprehension. The air itself tasted of possibilities, countless realities bleeding through temporarily thin dimensional membranes. The temple complex at center contains the primary records. Cheyenne indicated a structure that resembled both ancient shrine and futuristic data repository simultaneously. Information concerning previous convergence events and the nature of dimensional boundaries. And the convergence point itself? Naruto asked, his unique perceptual abilities already detecting energy patterns flowing throughout the nexus. Beneath the temple, Kurenai answered. A dimensional wellspring where realities naturally intersect even during normal separation. During convergence events, that intersection expands exponentially. They move through the impossible architecture, each experiencing slightly different versions of the same fundamental structure. For Naruto, elements reminiscent of both Konoha's historic shrines and Uzushio's spiral motifs manifested within the alien geometry. Yujito occasionally commented on feline imagery invisible to others. Rimuru noted technological components integrated with magical constructs. Shizue perceived flame patterns encoding information. Milim simply exclaimed over whatever caught her momentary attention. Only Kurenai and Cheyenne seemed entirely comfortable navigating the shifting environment, suggesting familiarity beyond what they'd previously admitted. "You've been here before," Naruto observed quietly to Kurenai as they approached the central temple. She smiled enigmatically. Kitsune's spirits exist partially between dimensions by nature. Places like Ashihara feel more natural to us than conventional reality. And Cheyenne? Dimensional seers experience multiple potential realities simultaneously. She likely perceives this place across several probability timelines concurrently. The central temple's entrance presented their first significant obstacle, a barrier of pure energy requiring specific resonance patterns to penetrate. Cheyenne directed them to form a specific configuration, each contributing their unique energy signature to create a harmonic key. "The temple recognizes dimensional authority rather than conventional power," she explained. "Each of you represents a specific frequency necessary for entry." The barrier analyzed their combined resonance pattern before dissolving, granting access to the temple's interior. Within, the architecture expanded impossibly, larger inside than physically possible from external dimensions. The central chamber housed what appeared to be both ancient library and multidimensional data repository simultaneously. The Akashic records, Kurenai identified with unexpected reverence. Dimensional memory spanning multiple convergence cycles. "Can we actually read these?" Yujito asked, eyeing texts that seemed to shift between multiple writing systems simultaneously. "You'll perceive information in formats comprehensible to your dimensional origin," Cheyenne explained. "Though translation remains imperfect." They spread throughout the chamber, each drawn to different sections according to their interests and abilities. Rimuru focused on technical specifications of dimensional mechanics. Yujito investigated historical accounts of previous convergences. Shizue studied containment procedures. Milim, surprisingly, demonstrated familiarity with ancient cosmological diagrams, occasionally correcting details others misinterpreted. Naruto found himself drawn to records concerning dimensional catalysts, beings who, like himself, had been transformed through dimensional transference. The accounts described various individuals throughout multidimensional history who had undergone similar processes, though none precisely matching his particular combination of transformative elements. "Finding yourself in cosmic history?" Kurenai asked, appearing silently beside him. "Finding patterns," Naruto corrected. "The Otsutsuki Collective has performed similar experiments before, creating dimensional hybrids through controlled exposure to multiple reality frequencies." "Indeed. Though you represent their most ambitious project in several convergence cycles." She traced elegant fingers across text that appeared as flowing calligraphy from her perspective. "Your particular combination of elements, human adaptability, Bija chakra, primordial slime essence, demon lord authority, creates unprecedented dimensional resonance potential." "For what purpose?" "That's the critical question, isn't it?" Her crimson eyes met his directly. Previous catalyst beings served specific functions within the collective's convergence designs. Some as dimensional anchors, others as energy conduits, others as frequency modulators. "And me?" "You, Naruto Uzumaki, appear designed as a convergence key." Her expression turned uncharacteristically solemn. "A being capable of either facilitating or preventing complete dimensional merger, depending on how your unique resonance pattern is applied." The implications settled heavily. Not just experimental subject or random casualty of dimensional collapse, but deliberately engineered component within the Otsutsuki Collective's grand design. Across the chamber, Cheyenne suddenly straightened, her prophetic eyes glowing with internal light. "Timeline collapse accelerating," she announced. "Convergence threshold advancing faster than projected." Rimuru looked up from her studies. "How much time remains?" "Hours, not days," Cheyenne replied grimly. "The collective has accelerated their timeline, likely detecting our presence within the nexus. We need to reach the convergence point," Naruto decided immediately. "Where exactly is it?" "Below," Kurenai indicated a spiral pattern in the chamber's floor, a design reminiscent of both Uzumaki's sealing techniques and this world's magical arrays. The dimensional wellspring exists in the Nexus's deepest layer. Can we access it from here? Yes, though doing so alerts the collective to our precise location and intentions, Cheyenne cautioned. Once we descend, confrontation becomes inevitable. Naruto looked around at his assembled companions, each extraordinary in their own way, each now facing multidimensional threat because they'd chosen to stand with him against cosmic manipulators. The weight of responsibility settled alongside determination. We need more information before confrontation, he decided. Everyone, gather whatever critical data you found about convergence mechanics, the collective's methods, and particularly countermeasures. We'll consolidate knowledge before descent. They worked quickly, extracting crucial information from the Akashic records. Patterns emerged from their collective findings, the Otsutsuki collective's consistent methodology across previous convergence events, vulnerability points in dimensional merger processes, and most importantly, the specific resonance key required to either complete or prevent convergence. The records confirm your function, Rimuru told Naruto after reviewing their combined findings. Your unique dimensional frequency can serve as either catalyst or countermeasure for complete convergence. Which explains why they engineered your specific transformation, Yujito added. You're literally the key to their entire plan. But keys work in multiple directions, Shizue observed thoughtfully. They can lock as well as unlock. Precisely, Kurenai confirmed. The same resonance pattern that enables complete dimensional merger can also reinforce separation if applied with opposite harmonic alignment. So I'm either their perfect tool or their greatest threat, Naruto summarized. Depending on how I apply my abilities. And whether you have the necessary support structure to properly channel and direct your resonance pattern, Cheyenne added, her otherworldly eyes studying him intensely. No catalyst functions in isolation, regardless of individual potential. The implication hung unspoken but clear, Naruto's connections with those assembled around him represented more than personal relationships or tactical alliances. They formed necessary components of whatever countermeasure might prevent catastrophic dimensional convergence. Time grows short, Cheyenne announced suddenly, her prophetic senses clearly perceiving shifts invisible to others. The convergence accelerates. We must descend now or lose opportunity entirely. With grim determination, they gathered at the spiral pattern marking descent to the dimensional wellspring. Cheyenne directed them into specific positions, creating a formation that would maintain their cohesion during transition between dimensional layers. Once we begin descent, the collective will detect our precise interference pattern, she warned. Expect resistance, both conventional and dimensional. Conventional I understand, Yujito said. What exactly constitutes dimensional resistance? Reality rejection, Kurenai explained grimly. The collective can selectively invalidate dimensional frequencies associated with specific entities, essentially attempting to erase your existence from current dimensional consensus. That sounds bad, Milim observed, though her expression showed excitement rather than concern. Can I punch dimensional resistance? Is it tangible? Focus your attacks on manifestations displaying opalescent auras, Cheyenne instructed. Those represent collective consciousness projections within this dimensional layer. With final preparations complete, they activated the descent sequence, each contributing their unique energy signature to the spiral pattern beneath them. The floor dissolved into luminous particles, and they descended through dimensional layers like sinking through water of increasing density. The wellspring chamber materialized around them, a vast spherical space with neither clear floor nor ceiling, where reality itself appeared as visible currents flowing between pulsing nodules of concentrated dimensional energy. At center floated a perfect sphere of darkness that somehow registered as the absolute absence of dimensionality, a null point around which reality itself organized. The origin void, Kurenai identified reverently. The dimensional zero point from which all realities initially differentiated. And the collective's target, Cheyenne added. By manipulating the origin void, they can restructure dimensional boundaries according to their design. Naruto studied the chamber with his unique perceptual abilities, seeing patterns invisible to conventional senses. The dimensional currents formed perfect mathematical sequences, reality itself expressing fundamental cosmic equations. And within those patterns, he detected recent disturbances, interventions precisely calculated to weaken dimensional separation. They're already here, he realized aloud. The collective has been manipulating the wellspring directly. As if summoned by his observation, opalescent light coalesced throughout the chamber, forming into humanoid figures of impossible perfection. Their features combined elements from multiple dimensional aesthetic frameworks simultaneously, beautiful yet fundamentally wrong, like mathematical equations containing logical impossibilities. Dimensional catalysts and associated entities, one figure announced, its voice resonating at multiple frequencies simultaneously. Your presence at Convergence Nexus was anticipated with 93% probability. Though your specific composition exceeds standard deviation parameters, another added, studying them with eyes containing galaxy-like swirls. Particularly the primary catalyst entity. The figure's attention focused on Naruto specifically, their opalescent forms shifting slightly as they analyzed his unique resonance pattern. Uzumaki Vessel Slime Demon Catalyst, the first acknowledged. Your development proceeds optimally despite autonomous decision patterns. Terminal resonance frequency approaches ideal convergence parameters. Translation: they're pleased with how their experiment is developing, Kurenai murmured to the others. Even our opposition falls within their calculated probability range. What exactly is your endgame? Naruto addressed the collective manifestations directly. Why engineer dimensional convergence at all? The manifestations exchanged what might have been glances, though their sensory apparatus defied conventional description. Dimensional entropy reaches critical threshold within current separation paradigm, one explained as if discussing obvious fundamentals. Segmented realities deplete essential cosmic energies at unsustainable rates. Convergence re-establishes original unified energy distribution system. While conveniently positioning you to harvest all dimensional energy from a single access point, Rimuru observed sharply. Efficiency optimization represents secondary benefit, another manifestation acknowledged without apparent concern about revealing their motives. Primary objective remains dimensional sustainability through controlled convergence. At the cost of countless lives across multiple dimensions, Yujito countered. Beings who never consented to your cosmic restructuring. The manifestations displayed what might have been confusion. Component entities within dimensional systems do not require consultation regarding cosmic architecture modifications. Their existential parameters will simply adjust or terminate according to compatibility with convergence outcomes. Adjust or terminate, Shizue repeated with cold fury. You're talking about billions of sentient beings across multiple dimensions. Quantitative component analysis represents irrelevant metric within cosmic restructuring paradigm, a manifestation dismissed. Dimensional stability supersedes individual continuation considerations. Their utter disregard for life across dimensions confirmed everyone's worst fears about the collective's perspective. These weren't malevolent entities seeking destruction for its own sake, but something perhaps more dangerous, beings operating from such cosmic scale that individual lives registered as meaningless statistical variables. We reject your convergence, Naruto stated firmly, golden energy beginning to radiate from his form as his unique dimensional resonance activated instinctively. And we will prevent its completion. The manifestations displayed no emotional response, merely adjusted positions slightly as if recalculating probabilities. Catalyst entity autonomous decision patterns acknowledged, one stated. Countermeasure probability scenarios initiated. Without further warning, reality itself distorted around them. The chamber's dimensional currents accelerated, creating localized reality turbulence that threatened to separate their group across different dimensional frequencies. Simultaneously, additional manifestations materialized, these less humanoid, more abstract representations of collective consciousness with offensive capabilities. Battle erupted across dimensional layers simultaneously. Milim immediately engaged the most tangible manifestations, her destructive energy proving surprisingly effective against entities existing partially outside conventional reality. Shizue deployed flame techniques specifically calibrated against dimensional intrusions, creating barriers that stabilized local reality against collective manipulation. Yujito's transformed Bijou abilities disrupted the manifestation's energy patterns, preventing them from fully materializing within their current dimensional layer. Rimuru demonstrated unexpected versatility, analyzing the collective's dimensional manipulation techniques and countering with her own reality-stabilizing barriers. Kurenai's 9 tails operated independently, each implementing different aspects of dimensional countermagic drawn from her ancient knowledge. Cheyenne maintained their group's dimensional cohesion through continuous prophecy adjustment, perceiving potential timeline shifts before they manifested and guiding countermeasures accordingly. At center, Naruto found himself in unique position, his specific dimensional resonance pattern allowing him to directly interface with the wellspring's energy currents. The collective had designed him as convergence key, but that same specialization granted him unprecedented access to the dimensional architecture they sought to manipulate. The origin void. Kurenai called to him between counterattacks against manifestations. You need to harmonize directly with the 0 point. That's where dimensional separation parameters are defined. Naruto understood immediately. While the others maintained defense against collective manifestations, he needed to reach the chamber's center, the perfect darkness around which reality organized itself. Cover me, he called, beginning movement toward the origin void. The collective clearly recognized his intention. Manifestations converged on his position, attempting to either capture or neutralize him. His companions responded with coordinated defense, Milim clearing path with raw destructive force, Yujito providing precise covering fire with Bijou flame techniques, Shizue establishing flame corridors through which he could advance, Rimuru creating momentary reality bridges across dimensional distortions, Kurenai disrupting the manifestation's coordination through foxfire illusions that functioned across dimensional perception, and Cheyenne continuously adjusting their combined efforts to counter probability shifts in real time. The advance wasn't without cost. Reality distortions intensified around them, creating moments where individuals partially phased between dimensional frequencies. Yujito briefly disappeared entirely before remanifesting, her form temporarily destabilized. Shizue suffered dimensional burns where manifestation energy contacted her directly. Even Milim found herself fighting partially out-of-phase opponents whose attacks bypassed conventional defense. Yet they maintained cohesive defense long enough for Naruto to approach the origin void. As he neared dimensional 0 point, his perception expanded exponentially. He saw not just the wellspring chamber but countless realities extending outward from this singular nexus, billions of worlds, trillions of beings, infinite possibilities all originating from this primordial point of differentiation. And he understood the collective's perspective more clearly. From this vantage, individual lives indeed seemed inconsequential compared to cosmic-scale energy patterns. Dimensional entropy represented genuine threat to reality's continued existence. Convergence offered mathematical solution to systemic instability. Yet simultaneously, he perceived what the collective consistently overlooked, the qualitative value emergent from quantitative components. Individual lives, connections between beings, love and sacrifice and courage and growth. These represented cosmic variables the collective's equations systematically excluded, yet which constituted reality's most profound aspects. The fundamental flaw in their approach wasn't the diagnosis but the prescribed treatment. Dimensional boundaries needed adjustment, not elimination. Connection, not convergence. Harmony, not homogenization. With this understanding crystallizing within his unique consciousness, Naruto extended his awareness directly into the origin void. His dimensional resonance pattern, human will, Bijou chakra, slime adaptability, demon lord authority, created unprecedented interface capacity with primordial dimensional architecture. The collective's manifestations realized his intention too late. Catalyst entity exceeds design parameters, one announced with what might have been alarm. Autonomous interfacing with origin coordinates detected. Countermeasure implementation imperative, another added as they redoubled efforts to reach Naruto. But his companions held firm, creating defensive perimeter that allowed him crucial moments to complete dimensional interfacing. Naruto's consciousness expanded into the origin void itself, accessing fundamental parameters that defined reality's organization. Within that impossible darkness, he perceived the collective's modifications, precise adjustments to cosmic variables controlling dimensional separation. And he understood exactly how to counter them. Not by simply reversing their changes, which would merely return to ultimately unsustainable separation. Not by implementing their convergence, which would sacrifice countless lives for cosmic efficiency. But by establishing new paradigm altogether, dimensional harmony rather than either complete separation or convergence. The solution manifested within his expanded consciousness, mathematical spiritual energetic equation that would establish permeable boundaries between dimensions. Controlled, limited interface points rather than either rigid separation or complete merger. Balance rather than binary alternatives. Implementing this solution required precise application of his unique resonance pattern, using himself as both template and catalyst for new dimensional organization. The process would permanently alter his own nature, binding him eternally to multidimensional maintenance. A sacrifice, yes. But one that honored both cosmic necessity and individual value across all connected dimensions. Without hesitation, Naruto initiated implementation. His golden energy expanded outward from the origin void, flowing along dimensional currents throughout the wellspring chamber. The pattern rippled across reality itself, establishing new parameters for dimensional interaction. The collective manifestations recognized the pattern immediately. Unsanctioned dimensional reconfiguration detected, they announced with genuine alarm. Catalyst entity implements unauthorized harmonic restructuring. They attempted intervention, but too late. Naruto's solution propagated through dimensional architecture at supraluminal velocity, rewriting fundamental parameters faster than the collective could counter. His companions contributed instinctively, each providing crucial harmonic elements that stabilized the new configuration as it manifested. Rimuru's synthetic dimensional frequency from her otherworld origin. Yujito's transformed bijou harmonics. Shizue's flame spirit integration pattern. Milim's primordial destructive creative oscillation. Kurenai's multidimensional fox spirit resonance. Shien's prophetic timeline harmonization. Each contributed unique frequency components to Naruto's fundamental pattern, creating cosmic symphony more complex and balanced than anything the collective had calculated. Reality itself shuddered as new parameters propagated outward from the nexus. The dimensional wellspring pulsed with recalibration waves that spread across all connected realities. The origin void briefly expanded before settling into new configuration, still cosmic 0 point, but now radiating harmonic rather than null energy. The collective manifestations destabilized as reality reorganized around them. Their forms flickered between dimensional frequencies, no longer capable of maintaining coherent presence within the new harmonic architecture. Recalculation required, one announced as its form dissolved. Pattern exceeds predictive models. Catalyst entity function transcends design parameters, another observed with what might have been respect before similarly dissipating. Within moments, all manifestations had vanished, not destroyed but displaced to dimensional interstices where they could no longer directly manipulate wellspring mechanics. The collective still existed, but their ability to orchestrate convergence had been fundamentally neutralized by Naruto's harmonic restructuring. As dimensional currents stabilized around new parameters, Naruto's expanded consciousness gradually reintegrated with his physical form. The process left him transformed yet again, his golden slime body now containing visible currents of multidimensional energy flowing in perfect harmonic patterns. He had become living embodiment of the new dimensional architecture he'd established, permanently connected to cosmic structure itself. His companions gathered around him as the wellspring chamber reconfigured to reflect new dimensional organization. Reality stabilized into harmonious pattern where different dimensional frequencies coexisted without merging completely, separation with controlled interface rather than convergence or isolation. "You did it," Rimuru breathed, her blue eyes wide with wonder as she studied the transformed dimensional currents. You completely rewrote the cosmic architecture. We did it, Naruto corrected, his voice carrying new resonance that vibrated across dimensional frequencies. The solution required each of your unique harmonic contributions. What exactly did we do? Yujito asked, practical even in the aftermath of cosmic restructuring. Besides stopping the collective's convergence plan, we established dimensional harmony, Cheyenne answered, her prophetic eyes perceiving the full scope of their achievement. A new paradigm where dimensions maintain separation while establishing controlled interface points. Balance rather than binary extremes. The collective sought efficiency through homogenization, Kurenai explained, her 9 tails swaying in patterns matching the chamber's dimensional currents. Naruto instead implemented diversity within harmony, maintaining dimensional uniqueness while creating sustainable energy exchange system. So we won? Milim asked hopefully. We established better solution, Shizue clarified. One that addresses legitimate cosmic concerns without sacrificing trillions of lives across dimensions. And the collective? Rimuru pressed. Displaced but not destroyed, Naruto answered, his expanded awareness still perceiving echoes of their presence in dimensional interstices. They'll eventually adapt to new parameters, perhaps even recognize the superiority of this solution compared to their convergence plan. You're different, Yujito observed, studying him with perceptive gaze. The implementation changed you. Naruto nodded, conscious of his transformation. I'm now connected to the dimensional architecture itself, living anchor for the new harmonic system. Part of me exists at all interface points simultaneously. A significant sacrifice, Cheyenne acknowledged softly. One the prophecies indicated as possible but not certain. Worth it, Naruto replied without hesitation. The alternative would have been catastrophic for countless beings across all connected dimensions. As they prepared to depart the wellspring chamber, dimensional currents stabilizing around them into beautiful harmonic patterns, Naruto fully perceived the connections binding him to each companion. Not merely emotional bonds or tactical alliances, but fundamental harmonic resonances that had proven crucial to implementing cosmic solution. Rimuru's analytical brilliance complemented by genuine compassion for all sentient beings. Yujito's fierce precision tempered by hard-earned wisdom. Shizue's disciplined power channeled through profound understanding of sacrifice. Milim's primal force guided by childlike appreciation for existence itself. Kurenai's ancient knowledge expressed through complex perspective transcending conventional morality. Cheyenne's prophetic perception balanced by genuine care for specific individuals despite cosmic-scale awareness. Each represented aspect of himself reflected through unique prism. Each had proven essential not despite but because of their differences. Together, they had implemented solution the collective could never have conceived with their homogenization fixation. As they ascended from the wellspring chamber, reality around them stabilized into new configuration. The dimensional nexus remained pivot point between worlds, but now organized according to harmonic principles rather than rigid separation or convergence. Interface points glowed with golden energy matching Naruto's transformed essence, living extensions of the new cosmic architecture he now partially embodied. What happens now? Yujito asked as they emerged into the Nexus's upper chambers. Everything changes while remaining recognizably itself, Kurenai answered with uncharacteristic directness. Dimensions remain distinct but no longer completely isolated. Controlled exchange becomes possible where beneficial, while maintaining necessary separation where harmful. And us? Milim asked, unusually thoughtful. What happens to us now? The question contained layers beyond its simple phrasing, addressing their coalition, their individual futures, and particularly their connections to Naruto in his transformed state. That depends on choices rather than cosmic necessity, Naruto replied, meeting each companion's gaze in turn. My transformation connects me permanently to dimensional architecture, but doesn't dictate personal relationships or future actions. Though your unique resonance pattern with each of us remains relevant to dimensional stability, Cheyenne observed. The harmonic system you established incorporates our specific frequency contributions. Translation: we're all connected to this new cosmic system through our connection to Naruto, Rimuru clarified. Though how we develop those connections remains our choice. The implication hung between them: their relationships had transcended purely personal significance, acquiring cosmic dimension without losing individual authenticity. What had begun as strategic alliance had evolved into something simultaneously more profound and more natural. I vote we figure it out together, Milim declared with characteristic directness. Adventures are always more fun with friends. The simple statement somehow perfectly captured the essence of their situation. Despite cosmic restructuring and dimensional responsibilities, fundamental truths remained: connection mattered, shared experience created meaning, and facing uncertainty together provided strength impossible in isolation. As they departed the dimensional nexus, reality around them reflected new harmonic organization, familiar yet subtly transformed. The pathways between dimensions maintained separation while allowing controlled interface where beneficial. Golden energy matching Naruto's essence flowed along dimensional boundaries, living extension of his transformed nature maintaining cosmic balance. Their return journey to Uzushio proceeded through newly stabilized dimensional corridors, pathways that would have been impossible under previous cosmic architecture but now existed as controlled interfaces between realities. The world they returned to remained recognizably itself, yet subtly enhanced by harmonic connections to adjacent dimensions. From Uzushio's central tower, Naruto gazed across his domain with new perception. His awareness extended beyond conventional reality, perceiving dimensional currents flowing throughout existence. The responsibility of maintaining cosmic harmony would require ongoing attention, yet didn't prevent him from simultaneously experiencing joy, connection, purpose within specific relationships. His companions, each now linked to him through harmonic resonance patterns integral to dimensional stability, stood beside him overlooking the transformed world. Their coalition had evolved beyond tactical alliance into something unprecedented, a harmonic assembly whose connections transcended conventional relationships while remaining authentically personal. So what shall we call this new cosmic paradigm? Rimuru asked, studying golden energy patterns visible in the distance where dimensional interfaces manifested. Harmony, Naruto replied simply. Not convergence or separation, but balance between distinct yet connected existences. As the word resonated across dimensional frequencies, golden energy pulsed in response throughout the connected realms. The Otsutsuki collective's convergence had been prevented, replaced by sustainable architecture that honored both cosmic necessity and individual value across all dimensions. Whatever challenges the future held, and Naruto's expanded awareness perceived many still to come, they would face them according to principles established in this pivotal moment: connection without domination, unity without uniformity, harmony built from distinct yet resonant individual contributions. The dimensional symphony continued, golden threads connecting all existences while maintaining their essential uniqueness, cosmic balance sustained through bonds simultaneously personal and transcendent. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.